You want to go to college? Good. Figure it out yourself, my mother said, while sliding a $120,000 tuition check across the table to my little sister. Same table, same dinner, same parents, different daughter. 9 years later, I stood in the back of my sister's wedding. A wedding paid for by the same parents who couldn't spare a dime for my future. My mother scanned the room and whispered to my father, "Why does it feel like something's missing?" Before anyone could answer, the groom turned pale. He looked at me, then at Julia, then back at me, and he said one word that silenced 200 guests. What that word was, and what happened next, destroyed a wedding, a family's lie, and a 9-year silence, all in under 4 minutes. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from. My name is Paige Connolly. I'm 27 years old. And this is not a revenge story. This is a survival story that happens to end with justice. Now, let me take you back 9 years, to the dinner that changed everything. I grew up in a white colonial house on Maple Ridge Lane in West Hartford, Connecticut. 4 bedrooms, 2-car garage, a lawn my father mowed every Saturday like clockwork. From the outside, we looked like a family that had it together. From the inside, well, that depends on which daughter you ask. My mother, Donna Connolly, had a system. It wasn't written down anywhere, but everyone in the house understood it. Julia was the investment, I was the overhead. Julia got piano lessons. I got hand-me-down textbooks. Julia got a new dress for every school dance. I got told to make do with what you have. And my mother didn't hide it. She introduced us at neighborhood barbecues like a product line. "This is my daughter Julia. She's going to do great things." Then she'd gesture vaguely in my direction. "And this is Paige." No prediction, no pride, just a name. The refrigerator was the museum of Julia's life. Cheerleading photos, honor society certificates, a dried corsage from homecoming taped to the freezer handle, every inch covered. One morning, sophomore year, I stuck my honor roll certificate up with a magnet right in the center. By the time I got home from school, it was gone. The fridge was getting cluttered, my mother said, not looking up from her magazine. My father, Richard, was a different kind of problem. He wasn't cruel, he was absent. Emotionally, strategically absent. He'd catch me in the hallway sometimes, away from my mother's earshot, and squeeze my shoulder. "I'm proud of you, kid." 5 words. Always whispered. Always when Donna wasn't looking. As if being proud of me was something that required secrecy. I told myself it would change when I got into college. I got in, with a scholarship that covered half. I just needed them to cover the other half. What happened at that dinner table is something I replay in my head to this day. May 2008. I was 18. Senior year was ending in 11 days, and I had a plan. I'd printed everything out: scholarship letter, tuition breakdown, a 4-year budget I'd built on a spreadsheet, income from part-time work, estimated expenses, the gap I needed them to fill. $62,000 over 4 years. I'd rehearsed my pitch in the bathroom mirror 3 times. Dinner was roast chicken. Julia sat across from me, scrolling her phone. My father cut his meat in silence. I waited until my mother finished her second glass of wine, then set the folder on the table. "I got into UConn," I said. "Half scholarship. I just need help with the rest." My mother didn't open the folder. "Paige, we've talked about this." "We haven't, actually. Not once." "You need to learn independence." She said it like a diagnosis. "The real world doesn't hand you things." I pointed out the obvious. "You're paying Julia's full tuition at Syracuse. Julia's situation is different." My mother folded her napkin. Precise. Unhurried. "She has potential that needs nurturing. You're more resilient." I looked at my father. He stared at his plate. His fork didn't move. He said nothing. Julia stirred her water glass. Didn't look up. Didn't say a word in my defense. Not one. "This discussion is over," my mother said. "If you want it bad enough, you'll find a way. That's what strong people do." I gathered my papers. My hands shook. I wouldn't cry in front of them. I wouldn't give her that. Later in the hallway, my father caught my arm. I thought, finally he'd say something. Your mother has her reasons, he said. Just give it time. Then he walked away. Back to the living room. Back to the television. Back to the version of peace that required my silence. That night, I packed one suitcase. I had $340 in my savings account, and I made a decision I haven't reversed in 9 years. 5:14 a.m. The kitchen was dark. I set my house key on the counter next to the coffee maker, the one my mother ran every morning at 6:15, so she'd find it first. No note. I didn't have anything left to explain. The garage light was on. My father sat in his Buick, engine off, hands on the wheel. He saw me through the windshield. I saw him. He didn't open the door. I didn't knock on the glass. We just looked at each other for 3 seconds that felt like a year. Then I turned and walked to the bus stop on Farmington Avenue. Campus was 90 minutes away. My dorm room had a thin mattress, a metal desk, and a window that didn't close all the way. No sheets, no blankets. I'd forgotten mine. I slept in my jacket that first night. By the end of the week, I had 3 jobs: dishwasher at Fratelli's, an Italian restaurant off Main Street, overnight cashier at a Sunoco station on Route 44, cleaning crew at the residence halls on weekends. My schedule was a jigsaw puzzle with no picture on the box. 4 hours of sleep here, a 90-minute nap there. I ate whatever Fratelli's was throwing out at closing. 2 weeks in, I called my mother. I don't know why. Maybe I thought distance had softened something. You made your choice, she said. Don't call to make me feel guilty. She hung up. 7 seconds. That was the whole conversation. I saved her number under a new name. Do not answer. That evening, a text came through from Julia. I stared at it for a long time. Mom says you're being dramatic. Just come home and apologize. So that was the story she was telling. I wasn't the daughter they abandoned. I was the daughter who left. The difficult one. The dramatic one. I didn't know it then, but that phone call was the last time I'd speak to my mother for nearly a decade. And when we finally stood face to face again, she wouldn't recognize the person I'd become. Freshman year nearly broke me. I fell asleep in organic chemistry twice. Spilled boiling water on my left hand during a dinner rush at Fratelli's. 2nd-degree burn, 3 fingers. Wrapped it in gauze from the gas station first aid kit and went to my morning lecture 40 minutes later. My GPA hovered at 2.9, dangerously close to losing the scholarship that was keeping me enrolled. Professor Alan Whitfield noticed. He taught my Intro to Health Sciences seminar. Silver-haired, bow-tied, the kind of man who actually reads student papers instead of skimming them. After class one Tuesday, he asked me to stay. You're exhausted, he said. Not a question. I gave him the short version. He didn't pity me. He pulled out a folder of internal grants and research assistantships. You're too smart to burn out before sophomore year, he said. Let me help you find a way that doesn't cost your hands or your sleep. He got me into a paid research position in his lab. It wasn't much, $400 a month, but it replaced the overnight shifts at Sunoco. Meanwhile, my mother was busy. Thanksgiving came. I wasn't invited, though I learned later that Donna told the entire family I'd been asked and refused. She doesn't want to see us, my mother reportedly said, dabbing her eyes with a napkin. We've tried everything. My Aunt Helen, Donna's younger sister, called me the week after. Your mother is heartbroken, Paige. Why are you doing this to her? I tried to explain. Helen cut me off. Donna would never do that. You always were the difficult one. The line went dead. And just like that, I lost my mother's side of the family too. That same week, Julia posted a photo on Facebook. A brand new Audi A4 parked in our parents' driveway, a red bow on the hood. Caption, best parents ever. My mother's comment underneath, anything for my baby girl. 87 likes. I took a screenshot, not out of bitterness, out of clarity. That was the night I stopped hoping they'd change and started building a life that didn't need them to. Lena Novak sat next to me in Biology 201 on the first day of sophomore year. She had dark hair pulled back in a rubber band, circles under her eyes deeper than mine, and a thermos of coffee the size of a small fire extinguisher. You look how I feel, she said. Thanks. It's a compliment. It means you're still showing up. Lena was pre-med. Her parents had emigrated from the Czech Republic when she was 6. They ran a dry cleaning shop in Bridgeport and couldn't afford tuition any more than mine could, the difference being hers actually wanted to help. They just couldn't. My parents could. They just chose not to. She became the first person I told the whole story to. All of it. The dinner, the check, the Audi, the Facebook post. I told her on a bench outside the science building at 11 at night, both of us eating gas station sandwiches because neither of us could afford the dining hall. Lena didn't flinch. She didn't offer sympathy. She wiped mustard off her chin and said, "You don't owe them a redemption arc, Paige. You owe yourself a life." I carried those words for years. That semester I started writing a research paper for Dr. Whitfield's lab. 12 pages on data applications and patient record management. Small clinic systems, workflow optimization, interoperability gaps. I wrote most of it between midnight shifts, in the staff break room at Fratelli's, between loads of industrial dishes. It was dry, technical, and deeply unsexy. But it was the first thing I'd ever built that felt completely mine. Dr. Whitfield read the draft in one sitting. "This could be something," he said. "Not just a paper. Something real." That paper, those 12 pages I wrote between midnight shifts, would eventually become the foundation of something I couldn't have imagined. But that part comes later. One night, sorting through junk mail, I found a forwarded email from my father. No subject line, no greeting, just 7 words. "I hope you're eating enough. Dad." He didn't ask where I was, didn't offer help, didn't mention my mother. Just 7 words floating in digital silence. I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop and went back to work. The end of sophomore year almost took me under. Fratelli's closed. The owner retired, the building sold. Just like that, 40% of my income disappeared overnight. I sat on my dorm bed and did the math 3 times, hoping the numbers would change. They didn't. I had enough savings for 6 weeks of rent on my shared room. After that, nothing. I picked up my phone, scrolled to Do Not Answer. My thumb hovered over the green button for 11 seconds. I counted. I put the phone down. Instead, I walked to the campus job board and signed up for 2 more gigs: tutoring freshmen in statistics and freelance data entry for a local insurance office on weekends. My schedule compressed to 3 hours of sleep a night. Some mornings, I couldn't remember driving to campus. Lena started leaving granola bars in my backpack without telling me. Meanwhile, Julia was living her semester abroad in Florence. I know this because her Instagram existed, even though I'd unfollowed her. The algorithm didn't care about my boundaries. A photo surfaced on my feed at 2 in the morning. Julia on a terrace overlooking the Arno. Glass of wine in hand, golden hour light on her face. Caption: "Living my best life. #grateful." My mother had reposted it with her own words. "My daughter, conquering the world." I was sitting in the basement laundry room of my residence hall. The overhead light buzzed. The heat had been out for 3 days. My fingers were cracked from dish soap and cold water. Same parents, same blood, different worlds. Then, a lifeline. Dr. Whitfield called me into his office. Not to warn me, to hand me a letter. I'd been selected for a competitive summer research fellowship, fully funded. Housing, stipend, meals, everything covered for 10 weeks. "You earned this," he said, "not because of your situation, because of your work." That summer program saved my academic career. But more importantly, it introduced me to a network of people in healthcare technology, people who saw what I could build, not what I came from. One of those connections would lead me to a name I wouldn't hear again for years, not until I was standing in the back of a wedding I was never supposed to attend. I graduated summa cum laude on a Sunday in May. The stadium held 4,000 people. None of them were mine. Lena stood in the bleachers with a handmade sign that said Dr. Connolly, eventually, in crooked purple letters. She screamed my name when I crossed the stage. One person, louder than a whole family would have been. We took a photo outside, just the 2 of us, caps tilted, grinning into Lena's phone. No parents in the background, no bouquet, no dinner reservation afterward. Lena drove us to a diner on Route 9, and we split a plate of cheese fries and called it a celebration. I got a job within a month. Entry-level software analyst at a small health tech firm outside Hartford. 12 employees, cramped office, terrible coffee. But I learned fast, wrote code, fixed systems nobody else wanted to touch, got promoted once, then again. By 24, I was sketching something of my own on napkins and spreadsheets. A platform to manage patient data for small clinics, the ones too small for enterprise software, but too complex for paper records. The idea that had started as 12 pages in Dr. Whitfield's lab had grown teeth. I used my savings and a small SBA loan to get it off the ground. Named it MedBridge Solutions. The first year, I had 2 clients and a folding table for a desk. I incorporated under my married name, well, almost married. I'd been engaged briefly in my mid-20s to a man named David Alcott. The relationship didn't survive the 80-hour weeks, but by the time we split, all my business filings, my professional reputation, and my conference badges read Paige Alcott. I never changed them back. It felt like mine by then. A name I'd earned in boardrooms, not inherited at a dinner table where I wasn't welcome. Then one evening, my phone rang. A Connecticut area code I hadn't seen in 6 years. "Hey," Julia said. "It's me." "I know. Mom doesn't know I'm calling." "What do you need, Julia?" "A favor. A financial one." "How much?" $8,000. I'll pay you back." "I can't ask Mom and Dad. They can't know about this." "For what?" "It's complicated." "No." "You don't even—" "No." She hung up. 30 minutes later, my phone lit up with an unknown number. I picked up before I could think. "How dare you refuse your sister?" My mother's voice, colder than I remembered. "After everything this family has done." I pressed the red button, set the phone face down on the counter, and stood there, replaying what Julia had said 30 minutes earlier. "Mom doesn't know I'm calling." So either my mother had suddenly developed telepathy, or my sister had lied to me within the first 5 seconds of our first conversation in 6 years. Some things never change. Made myself a cup of tea, and went back to work. I didn't know what the $8,000 was for, not then. But when I found out, years later in the worst possible way, it explained everything Julia had been hiding. Donna didn't take rejection quietly. She never did. Within a week, my phone started ringing. Numbers I hadn't seen in years. Cousins, family friends, people I barely remembered from childhood holiday dinners. All with the same script. "Paige, your mother is devastated." "Paige, how could you turn your back on Julia?" She'd called every one of them. Built a fresh narrative from scratch. Paige has money now. Paige refused to help her own sister. Paige has become cold and selfish since she left. Aunt Helen called. "Your mother is crying every night because of you." "Did she cry when I was working 3 jobs at 18? That was your choice." "Exactly. And this is also my choice. Goodbye, Aunt Helen." Then came the Facebook post. Long, performative, dripping with carefully constructed sorrow. Some children forget where they come from. A mother's heart can only break so many times. She didn't name me. She didn't have to. 142 likes. Julia's comment sat right at the top. "Love you, Mom. I'm here for you. Always." A perfect duet. The devoted daughter and the wounded mother, staged for an audience that only ever heard one side. I saw the post. I didn't react. Didn't comment. I blocked both accounts, closed my laptop, and went back to debugging a client integration that was due in the morning. A few days later, Lena called me on her break from the hospital. She was halfway through her residency by then. "Hey, random question. Julia's LinkedIn says she's a senior healthcare administrator, but I looked her up on the state licensing registry last night. Nothing. No license. No record. Maybe she hasn't updated it? Or maybe there's nothing to update." I filed that away. I didn't think about it again. I was too busy building something real to chase someone else's lie. I could have fought back. Could have posted my own version, corrected the record, aired the receipts. But I had a company to build. And the best response to a false narrative isn't a counter-narrative. It's a life they can't edit. 26, 2 years after that phone call, MedBridge Solutions closed its Series A round. $4.2 million in funding, 28 employees, a real office in downtown Boston with actual desks and coffee that didn't taste like engine cleaner. I still drove a Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper, still lived in a one-bedroom apartment in Somerville. I didn't build this company to impress anyone, I told Lena when she asked why I hadn't upgraded. I built it because I had no safety net and no other option. That October, I was invited to speak at a healthcare technology conference in Chicago. 200 attendees, mostly hospital administrators and clinic operators. I presented MedBridge's platform, how it cut onboarding time for small practices by 60%, how it integrated with existing EHR systems without the enterprise price tag. Afterward, a man in a gray blazer introduced himself near the coffee station. Tall, confident handshake, direct eye contact. Marcus Webb. I'm CFO of Lakeview Medical Partners, a regional clinic chain. We're expanding. What you showed up there is exactly what we've been looking for. How many locations? I asked. 14, 22 by next year. That's a significant rollout. It is, which is why I want to talk numbers. Can we meet next month? We exchanged business cards. I wrote Marcus Webb, Lakeview Medical, follow-up November, in my meeting notes that night. Just a name. Just a potential deal. As I waited for my flight home at O'Hare, a notification popped on my phone. Julia Connolly has sent you a friend request on Facebook. She'd made a new account. The old one was still blocked. I stared at it for a few seconds, then tapped decline, and put my phone away. Marcus Webb. I didn't know he was about to become my sister's fiancé, or that our deal would detonate a lie my family had been building for 9 years. 6 months later, the deal with Lakeview Medical Partners was taking shape. Contract value, $2.8 million, easily the largest in MedBridge's history. My team had spent weeks on the proposal. Technical specs, implementation timelines, compliance documentation. Healthcare is heavily regulated, and every detail had to be airtight. As part of the deal, Lakeview wanted MedBridge to handle their credentialing module, the system that tracks staff licenses, certifications, and continuing education for regulatory audits. To build it properly, we needed their existing personnel records as sample data for implementation. My compliance officer requested the full staff roster with credentials listed. It was a technical requirement, not an investigation. Just data we needed to configure the system correctly. That part was routine. What wasn't routine was the envelope that arrived at my apartment on a Tuesday afternoon, cream-colored, heavy cardstock, gold embossing along the edges. I opened it standing at the kitchen counter, still holding my keys. Together with their families, Julia Connolly and Marcus Webb request the honor of your presence at their wedding. Rosewood Estate, Old Saybrook, Connecticut. Saturday, June 15th. 5 o'clock in the evening. I read it twice. Then I set it down and walked to the window and stood there for a while. Marcus Webb. The same Marcus Webb whose contract was sitting in my inbox. My sister was marrying my biggest client. I picked up the invitation again. A folded piece of notebook paper fell out from behind the RSVP card. The handwriting was shaky, slanted, small letters pressed hard into the paper. Please come. Dad. Not Donna, not Julia. Richard. He'd slipped it in like contraband. My father didn't know what I did for a living. He'd never asked, and I'd never told him. Our only communication in 9 years had been a 7-word email he never followed up on. He didn't send the invitation because he knew about Marcus or MedBridge. He sent it because, for all his failures, he still wanted both his daughters in the same room. I called Lena that night. My sister is marrying my biggest client. Silence. Does he know who you are? She asked. He knows me as the CEO of MedBridge, not as Julia's sister. Does Julia know? I don't think so. She has no idea what I do. So what are you going to do? I looked at the notebook paper. My father's handwriting. Shaky, small. The letters of a man who didn't have the courage to call, but couldn't stop himself from reaching. I'm going to go. I should have thrown the invitation away. Every rational part of me said, don't go. But my father's handwriting, on torn notebook paper, tucked behind an RSVP card like he was afraid someone would see, broke something in me I thought I'd sealed shut. I spent 2 weeks going back and forth. Lena said, if you go, go for yourself, not for them. She was right. She usually was. I decided to attend for 3 reasons. Closure, my father's note, and the fact that I needed one more face-to-face with Marcus before we finalized the contract. A wedding wasn't ideal. But nothing about this situation was ideal. I RSVP'd for two, myself and Lena, who insisted on coming. "You're not walking into that house alone," she said. "I didn't survive 4 years of med school to let you face Donna Connolly without backup." Meanwhile, the due diligence process churned along on schedule. My implementation team began running the credentialing data through our verification engine. It's a core feature of the platform, cross-referencing submitted credentials against state licensing databases and university registries. It's what the software does. It's literally the product we were selling them. The kind of paperwork that sits in someone's inbox for a week before anyone notices. The spreadsheet came back with 14 names. I scrolled through it at my desk, coffee in hand, not expecting anything unusual. Line 9, Julia Connolly, Healthcare Administrator, MS in Health Informatics, State University of New York. My stomach dropped. Not surprise exactly. Something closer to confirmation. I thought of what Lena had told me a couple of years back. Her name wasn't on the state registry. I could have flagged it. Could have said something to Marcus right then. But this was a compliance process, not a personal investigation. The protocol was clear. Verify every name on the list. No exceptions, no shortcuts, no favoritism, in either direction. I emailed my legal team. Fast-track the credential verification, the full list, standard procedure. I didn't single Julia out. I didn't have to. The process would find whatever there was to find. 3 days later, a preliminary note came back from our compliance officer. 3 names flagged for extended verification. Institutional responses may take 2 to 4 weeks. The wedding was in 18 days. The results might not arrive until after it. And I realized I wasn't just going to my sister's wedding. I was walking into a collision between 2 worlds she never expected to meet. I didn't ask which 3. I didn't need to. The wedding was in 18 days. The verification results would arrive in 14. And I realized I wasn't just going to my sister's wedding. I was walking into a collision between 2 worlds she never expected to meet. Rosewood Estate sat on 12 acres of rolling vineyard just north of the Connecticut shoreline. String lights hung in loops between old oak trees. White linen draped every surface. A string quartet played something soft and tasteful near the garden entrance. 200 chairs faced a flower-covered arch. It looked like a magazine spread. It looked like money. My parents' money. Lena and I arrived at 4:40. I wore a simple navy dress, hair down, no jewelry worth noticing. Lena wore black. "Moral support and funeral energy," she whispered. "Both apply." We'd barely made it past the welcome table when a voice cut through the ambient music. "I didn't expect to see you here." Aunt Helen. Champagne in hand. Same pinched expression she'd worn the last time she told me I was the difficult one. "I was invited," I said. "By whom?" "Does it matter? I'm here." She opened her mouth, closed it, then retreated toward a cluster of cousins near the bar. I watched her whisper something to 2 women I vaguely recognized. Both turned to look at me. Then my mother appeared. Donna Connolly moved through the crowd like a hostess at a gala. Champagne-colored dress, hair blown out, smile set to maximum wattage. She touched shoulders, kissed cheeks, laughed at things that weren't funny. When she saw me, the smile didn't drop. It froze. She crossed the lawn in 6 seconds and pulled me behind a trellis of white roses. "What are you doing here?" "Attending my sister's wedding." "You haven't been part of this family for 9 years. Whose choice was that?" Her jaw tightened. "Don't make a scene, not today." "I have no intention of making a scene, Mom." She studied me for 3 long seconds, reading me, calculating. Then she turned back to her guests, voice bright and warm as sunlight. "Paige decided to surprise us. How wonderful." She didn't touch me, didn't hug me, just folded me into her performance like a loose thread she needed to tuck away before anyone noticed. Then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned. My father stood behind me. His suit was a little too big. His eyes were red. He didn't say a word. He just pulled me into his arms and held on. 9